Tulsi Gabbard, welcome to the program. How are you?
Very good, my friend. How are you?
I'm good. Are you in Hawaii right now?
I am in Virginia today,
Okay.
and tomorrow, and Texas the day after. I'm on the road living out of a suitcase.
Oh boy. So first of all, you're on a short list, and I'm not going to ask you, anything other than, have you had a conversation with him about being vice president?
I've spoken to him. I won't talk about what we spoke about.
That's
but,
fine.
I've met and spoken to him.
Would you serve in any capacity in a Trump administration?
I would serve in a capacity where I felt that I could actually be effective in helping to get our country back on track, both in domestic policy and foreign policy. So,
Tulsi, I respect you. I really like you. We disagree on things. You were a former Bernie Sanders supporter. But I also know you love the Constitution and America and the country. And just finding somebody who loves America is very hard to find right now. Can you help me out on understanding the Bernie Sanders to, I'd be willing to serve in a Trump administration?
Of course. I'm glad you asked, because it is on its face kind of a big mental leap. But when you actually look at the reason, when I made that announcement back in 2016 to resign as vice chair of the DNC so that I could get involved in that Democratic presidential primary, I focused on one thing. I announced my endorsement of Bernie Sanders over Hillary Clinton around foreign policy. Bernie Sanders of today is even different now than he was back then on some of these foreign policy issues. But there was a very clear contrast between Hillary Clinton, the queen of warmongers, and Bernie Sanders, who has for a long time largely been more of a non-interventionist. Yes. And I was frustrated because as an officer of the DNC, I couldn't, according to the rules, get involved or speak out publicly. But as you remember, Glenn, people were saying that Hillary Clinton was the most qualified person ever to run for president in the history of our country. But of course, I know, I still laugh when I think about that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just her campaign people who were saying this. It was supposedly serious people on, the different cable shows and the broadcast news shows and the meet the press type shows.
Right.
But they never went beyond, okay, well, she's held this title and that title and that title. They would never go into what her record actually was, the kinds of decisions that she made, the things that she influenced and urged President Obama to do as his Secretary of State. And for me, as an American citizen, as a soldier and a veteran of various wars and conflicts, I felt strongly about the fact that Hillary Clinton would be the most dangerous president and commander-in-chief for our country, our freedom, our security, and our liberty. And so I took the opportunity to make that endorsement of Bernie Sanders around that issue so that I could have a platform to call her out directly to the American people so that at a minimum, they could make a more informed decision about who they wanted to be the Democratic presidential nominee for that time.
Eden Pure is back with their famous Thunderstorm air purifier. It's their top seller air purifier that quickly destroys viruses, odors, mold, and so much more. With thousands of 5-star reviews, you know it works. Any smell will vanish after just a few seconds of the Thunderstorm being plugged in. Odors, litter boxes, trash cans, cigarette smokes, dirty diapers. Wow, I don't want to visit that house. The powerful Thunderstorm sends out O3 molecules that seek out and destroy odors. I have these in my house. They're great. The molecules go behind and under furniture. Nothing can hide from the Thunderstorm. Best of all, no filters to buy over and over again, saving you money. Start enjoying your home again and get several Thunderstorms. Right now, you can save $200 on an Eden Pure Thunderstorm 3-pack for the whole home protection. You get 3 units for under $200. Put one in your basement, bedroom, family room, kitchen, wherever you need the air to be clean. Go to EdenPureDeals.com. EdenPureDeals.com. Use the promo code BECK and save.
The State Department has been off the rails for 100 years. And they're very warmongering. What's happening in Ukraine is obscene. Strangely, I think since Ronald Reagan, and I think even more so than Ronald Reagan, but it was a different time, Donald Trump is the least, he understands peace through strength, but he is the least likely to go to war, and yet the left keeps saying he's a warmonger.
It's their tried and true tactic, and you see them doing this not only with an issue as serious as war and peace, but you also see how they're doing it around democracy. They're claiming he will be the dictator in chief, and this will be the last election that's ever held if he wins, and so on and so forth. Yet we look at how they're weaponizing the Department of Justice and all that they are doing, both to target and prosecute, throwing everything in the kitchen sink at Donald Trump, but also going after everyday Americans whose names will never be in the headlines because they are the quote unquote political opposition, the undermining of free speech, the undermining of the rule of law. And yet they cloak all of this and try to distract and deflect attention away from the American people and the reality of how they are destroying our democracy right before our very eyes. And they do so by saying Donald Trump is the biggest enemy of democracy. They're doing the same thing around foreign policy. The thing that I'm urging Americans to do across the country, both through my book, For Love of Country, but also in every platform or speech where people will have me, is to look at the facts. This is the first time in our lifetimes we've had a presidential election where we actually have two people who served in the White House with a very real record for us to examine.
Compare.
And take the emotions aside. People have strong feelings one way or the other, and and that's what a lot of the Democrats and Biden people focus on, because they're afraid that we will actually compare and contrast their record on border security, on education, on fairness for women and girls in sports and education, on the economy and inflation, the list on criminal justice reform, something that Democrats claim to be for, and also, of course, first and foremost, foreign policy and how secure is our country today, and where are our taxpayer dollars being dedicated in each of these areas and more. There's a very clear contrast between President Biden and President Trump. And to me, what it all comes down to are the two most core critical questions that, as you pointed out, are rooted in the Constitution. Is number one, who actually has served the interests of the American people and our country and our ability to live in a safe, free, peaceful, and prosperous society. And number two, who has either defended or assaulted our fundamental rights and freedoms that are enshrined in the Constitution: freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of religion, our civil liberties guaranteed by the Fourth Amendment. And again, when you look at these metrics, there is no question about the difference between President Biden and President Trump.
Let me ask you, why should somebody, and I don't mean this just to you, I mean this for anybody, even, Joe Biden, Donald Trump, why should we believe, when we have not seen one for a very long time, and when they do believe this, they're called extremists, why should we believe anybody, or you, that your oath of office would mean what it says, that you will protect the Constitution and the Bill of Rights?
I think with anybody and everyone, it is going back to the old adage, trust but verify, and hold people accountable. And that is true of me and of anyone asking for the trust and confidence of the American people. I think part of that is recognizing that as the world changes, as the country changes, there has to be room for people to learn and grow from these changing circumstances. I think a lot of the problems that we're seeing in a lot of the political divides. And I get it. Trust is earned. But there, in order for there to be progress, we have to allow people to grow and change based on the circumstances. You know, we've seen, I think, over these last 5 or 6 years, or especially during the during the Biden administration, we have seen what an increasingly tyrannical government looks like. And we are seeing how our founding fathers were so wise in recognizing that our democracy, this form of governance that we have in this constitutional republic through this representative democracy, is very fragile, and how people in positions of power are often tempted and may fall to that temptation of abuse of power. And so we have this system of checks and balances through 3 co-equal branches of government. We have this system of checks and balances through the Constitution, our First Amendment and our Second Amendment, for the power to always favor the voices and the power of a free people and a free society. I would never have imagined, Glenn, in my lifetime that we would see such brazen abuse of power. Oh. And it's not only just a failure to uphold the Constitution. The Democrat elite are actively destroying the Constitution in broad daylight and telling us, no, we don't think the First Amendment is relevant today because of misinformation, disinformation, hate speech, all of the excuses that they give, which are very dangerous. They tell us that, no, the Second Amendment shouldn't apply because, and they cite all of these different statistics of tragedies that occur in our country, but that ultimately taking guns away from law-abiding Americans would not actually prevent those types of tragedies from occurring. It would make it more dangerous, and it denies the reality of that we have faced throughout, I think, the history of humanity, is that if you have a person who seeks to do harm to others, they will find a way to do so, unfortunately. And
Tulsi,
and you know, so go ahead.
No, you finish your thoughts, please. I don't want to interrupt you.
They will find a way to do so. It's incumbent upon us now, again, to understand and recognize the seriousness of this moment and the fact that they are doing all these things because they're afraid of the power of a free people. But we are only powerful if we hold on to that power.
Tulsi, when you were in town, I'd love to do another podcast with you because I find you fascinating, and I actually think you could be a huge help to bringing our country back together. But the time is so short here. I wanted to ask you, one of the things that if I were President Trump, I would actually consider you as a vice presidential candidate to unite the country, after much discussion. But the one thing I know I would feel comfortable appointing you to is Secretary of Defense. Our military is a mess. And it's because we have all of these woke generals and all of these political appointments. They've all risen to the top. Problem is, doesn't appear to me to be below the general and all of their, apparatus around them. If you were Secretary of Defense, could you clean this up? Is it fixable?
Yes, unequivocally, yes. And your diagnosis is correct. It's not by accident that the kinds of general officers that are rising through the ranks are those who are advocating for these so-called woke / DEI, whatever policies. The reason why they've gotten there is because of their civilian leadership, picking and choosing people who will not. I mean, obviously, we have a civilian-led military. Those in uniform will follow the policies that are set by the civilian leaders.
Correct.
But these civilian leaders, Secretary Austin and the different secretaries of each branch of the military, they are promoting careerists who have played it safe, who have done whatever they needed to do to go along and get along, to rise through the ranks, and have not been in those positions, and have intentionally so, not been in those combat-hardened positions where they've got to make really tough choices that may come with some backlash. But that is the definition of leadership. And I can tell you, I know personally a number of officers in different branches of the military who have been shoved out and forced to retire because they happen to be white males. And these are people who over the last 25 years have deployed every single year in the most harsh combat environments and made those tough calls between life and death. There have been investigations because of it. But these are people who have the kind of experience that will never be replaced. And they're getting shoved out, and they are not getting promoted because of the civilian leadership at the very top of the Department of Defense. So, yes, as a Secretary of Defense, I would 100% be able to right the course, fix what has become so broken within our Department of Defense. And it starts with putting the right leaders in the right places who put our country first and who really care more about our troops than they care about how many stars they wear on their shoulders. I obviously have very strong feelings about this because I still serve, and I know personally the detrimental impact that this administration is having on our military, their morale and their capabilities and readiness to be able to do their job.
Tulsi, next time you're in Dallas, please let me know. I'd love to talk more about especially the military and where we're at. Thank you so much. God
I look
bless.
forward to it, Glenn. Thank you so much.
You bet. Bye-bye.